Shirt tutorial, Yukiko from Persona 4. This year I played Persona 4 for the first time, which easily became one of my favorite RPGs. I'm going to explain how I went from this to this. So the original shirt I got from Amazon. Although it's not perfect, the reason I chose this one is because of the braided pattern on the cardigan itself, which I felt is pretty similar to the pattern on Yukiko's shirt. One of the obvious differences is that the Amazon shirt has a much higher collar, kind of like a turtleneck, so I just cut it off. From there, I had a much lower neckline to work with, and I just hemmed it so there wouldn't be any visible rough material from the cut. The next step would be to create Yukiko's sailor collar, so for this I just took some black fabric and made it from scratch. This sort of thing was pretty new for me, so it was a fun learning process. So I basically just cut out the shape of the collar from the fabric first. The next step was to add the yellow stripe. And for that I just sewed a piece of thin yellow ribbon directly onto the collar. So I originally was going to make the collar detachable, but I felt that it ended up being easier to just sew the collar right onto the shirt itself. Now for this sort of triangle-shaped piece, which is normally a part of the collar, I cut out the shape and just fit it into place right here, also sewing it directly onto the shirt itself. I created some excess fabric and folded it over to sort of hem it to create a smooth edge. Next is the emblem. For this, I used these sort of white fabric pens, more like paint pens, I guess. I started with the center ring and just used a round object I had laying around as a stencil and traced around that. I used the center ring as a guide and decided to just hand draw the outer two rings. There are two symbols in the center here. I just hand drew these on with the paint pens also. The next step is the actual ribbon or neckerchief, whatever you want to call it. So for this I just used a spool of yellow ribbon from the craft store. What I did was guide the ribbon around the neckline and sort of bring it down here. Now the ribbon knot is a bit of an illusion. I just cut off a small piece of the ribbon and sewed it on in the back here. For the ends of the ribbon, I cut them to give them that sort of pointed shape. So actually, I didn't end up having the ribbon wrap around the entire neckline because it caused the collar to not lay down very flat when I was wearing it. So I just sewed it right underneath here. It still gives the ribbon the desired look anyway, so I felt it didn't matter too much. And finally, the buttons. So the original buttons on this shirt were honestly kind of weird. They're these huge black buttons that I felt looked kind of clunky and odd on the original shirt. They didn't look like the buttons on Yukiko's shirt either way, so I just removed them and added these round silvery buttons on in their place. They're a bit smaller and I think they look more similar to the desired look. I made them functional also, so they're not trick buttons that are just for show. So the character's shirt actually comes out to this sort of upside down V shape at the bottom of the shirt, as you can see here. What I did to achieve this was just remove the bottom two buttons from the shirt and sew the holes shut. After that, it's finished. It took me a lot of time and experimenting to finish this piece, and I really like how it turned out.